You've gotten your home under contract. Now what? There's a lot that happens from contract to closing that people aren't aware of, and I think that setting expectations and letting you know about all the ins and outs of what happens from the time you go under contract to the closing table is helpful to not have any surprises or any disappointments. I have a contract in front of me to reference the process and what happens. So when you're on the listing side and your home has just gone under contract, you'll receive an email from us saying what's next. And the very first thing that happens is typically an inspection, assuming the offer you received was contingent upon inspection. So we detail that in our email, and we let you know that those typically take 2 to 3 hours. The only people present for those are usually the buyer's agent, and their inspectors. It's no need for the sellers to be home. We have a list in our email of things to check after the inspection, and those are things that we've noticed from time to time. Electric baseboards haven't been turned off, ovens haven't been turned off, and that's why we included them in that email, so you can check those things and not be upset if you come home and one of those things have happened. Basement doors being left unlocked, things such as that. So the inspection is the very first part of the process. When you have a contract that is option to negotiate repairs, you'll be waiting a day or two to receive a list from the purchaser of items they may like you to fix. When they send that list, they'll also send you their inspection report. Do not be alarmed that it's 40 pages. Do not think that your home was in bad shape because the inspector found a gazillion items. That's how every report looks, I promise you. It's scary, it looks scary. We warn our purchasers ahead of time. Their job is to check everything top to bottom and put every single thing in there. So don't be alarmed, be prepared, then you won't be as upset about it when it comes. The repair requests are negotiable. So just like we negotiated our offer, we'll negotiate repair requests. So when they come in, you'll meet with your agent and you guys will go over that together, decide what you're willing to do, what you'd rather not do. Some people like to offer a credit at closing for the buyers to take care of those items themselves after closing. I often line up contractors, handymen to help my seller get that stuff done. Actually, I prefer it. I like just knocking all those items out, making sure they're done correctly. And that's step number 1. After we get through inspection, the buyer will be ordering their appraisal with the lender. So we will be getting a phone call and scheduling that appraisal. You don't have to leave your house for this like you did for the home inspection. It's not going to be as long. It's typically 20 or 30 minutes, and the appraiser is looking all around, making notes. They're going to do the property valuation, and they're going to send a report to the bank, letting the bank know what they think fair market value of the house is. In this market, we're concerned about appraisals because there are low appraisals coming in every day. When that happens, there is an option. It depends on how your contract's written, how your appraisal contingency is written, if it's contingent upon appraisal. If it's not, typically when a low appraisal comes in, we ask the seller if they'll reduce to appraised value. And if that happens, we just smooth sailing to closing. If they don't want to reduce, we can ask the buyer if they'd like to bring cash to closing to make up the difference from appraised value to contract price. And we can also, both parties can say, the seller can say they don't want to reduce, the buyer can say they don't want to come up, and it can kill the deal, and we can put the house back on the market. I don't encourage my clients to do that because typically we could go through that process again and then the house still wouldn't appraise. So in this market, when we're getting multiple offers, we're seeing offers over ask price, and then we're having appraisals done and they're coming in low. I'm telling people in the beginning, sellers, don't count your chickens before they hatch. This money is not guaranteed. There's a process we have to follow. That includes an appraisal. So that is a big deal. And I feel like if sellers aren't warned about that in the beginning, then they are very upset when that comes in. So just be prepared for that. Back to the home inspection, all equipment, all kitchen appliances, everything is checked during that. So if you just want to go ahead and make sure you have all that good to go before their inspection, then that'll be less problems that we see. So after the home inspection and after the appraisal, then the seller is kind of sitting back because what's happening is the loan officer, the lender, is working with the purchaser on approving their loan. It's going through underwriting, it's going through all the steps. The purchaser's doing stuff like getting their homeowner's insurance. You might receive a call. How old is your wood stove? Can an insurance person come look at and take a picture of the wood stove? That's all being done because the buyer's trying to line up homeowner's insurance. So be aware of that. Sometimes purchasers want to come back to the house because they want to show a parent, or they forgot how many windows or where they're going to have to buy curtains for blinds. So be prepared for a phone call. Can the purchaser come back out and take a look? That's not unusual. If you put yourself in their shoes, then you'll realize that, oh yeah, it is a long time from the time I saw the house till closing. So that does happen. Speaking about curtains and blinds, page 1 of our Virginia Realtors contract here does say that, blinds, curtain rods, and brackets are included. The VAR contract, that one has little check boxes by personal property. So our company always sends that paragraph and says, even after you sign the contract, we send that paragraph and we're like, can you make sure that you have 2 garage door openers, you're okay with letting your window treatments convey, and all of the following, because personal property items are the biggest mix-up we see. So if you're a seller, you really want to review that personal property section. It's number 2 in the Virginia Realtors contract. It's paragraph 13 in the NVAR contract, and you really want to review and make sure you're good with all of the items that are conveying. I don't know how many closings we've had end on a bad note because a washer and dryer was taken and not there when it was supposed to be. So definitely keep up with checking that personal property section. Usually, a seller is required to have a pest inspection. Not always. Sometimes the buyer pays for this. Sometimes it's not a contractual requirement. It's usually about 30 or 40 bucks. We order that for you. Pest inspector comes out. The issue may be if they find, it's not always termites. Maybe something like powder post beetles. It may be carpenter bees. So we frequently see these items needing treated. I feel like if sellers aren't aware that there's usually a wood destroying inspection, sometimes it comes back with pests that need treatment. I feel like those kind of things really can stress a seller out because this is a stressful process anyway. A seller's likely moving, packing up their home. They may be buying another home themselves. So when your realtor calls and says it's going to be 800 bucks to treat termites, sellers kind of freak out a little bit. If you know that, if you're prepared, everybody goes through this, it's a normal process, it's part of the selling process, then you won't be as stressed out when that happens. Another big expense that could happen is your radon test could fail. A lot of people don't know what radon is. They don't know why they need a radon test. They assume there is no radon in their home. We're in a high area for radon, gas that's in the ground. When some houses, now it's code in certain counties around here to have a passive pipe that's down in the ground through your basement, comes up through your roof. That doesn't have a fan on it, so that is a passive system. When an inspector comes in, they leave a test in your basement for 2 or 3 days, and then they read the report and it reads your radon levels. If it's under 4, you're good. If it's over 4, then they're going to recommend radon mitigation. That means that the seller is going to be requested to install a fan on that passive pipe or an entire system, which involves drilling, jackhammering in a basement. Hence why this is a $1,000 to $1,500 situation. But this is typical. Almost all of my buyers test for radon nowadays. My personal story is I never had my basement tested, and then we were finishing the basement for my children to go down there, and I said, I want to have a radon test. My kids are going to be down there. Had one, we came back at 11. At that point in time, I hadn't even seen anybody's radon fail that badly as my own house. So we had the passive system, we installed the fan. There's ways to check it these days and make sure it's working. But I'm telling you this, I'm telling you all worst case scenarios because these are all items that really push sellers over the edge. When we agents call and say, your radon failed, you're gonna have to pay $1,500 to put a mitigation system in. So just be prepared that even as a seller and even in a hot seller's market, you think of if you were going to buy a used car. You know it's a used car, you know somebody lived in it, you know somebody drove it. So you're in a house that you've lived in, and even if somebody's selling in a hot seller's market and 3 or 4 people put offers on your home, you still have a duty to make sure equipment and systems are working, the house is in good shape, you're not failing wood destroying insect inspections or radon inspections. So just consider that part of your duties. Once again, if you know all this up front, it's less upsetting when you hear the news from us from in between contract to closing. So we've gotten through home inspection, appraisal, pest inspection. Septic inspections are a big ticket item, always. Maybe you could just save a lot of grief if you just had a septic pumping and inspection done prior to the transaction, because these have a high rate of needing at least something done. Usually they uncover the distribution box, they pump the tank, they camera the tank, see if there's any cracks, camera the lines, see if there's any roots that have gone through the lines. I have a lot of sellers say, I've lived here 10 or 15 years, my septic system works just fine. But these septic inspections, they're detailed, they cost a lot of money. The buyer has them because they want to make sure everything's on the up and up. The home they're buying, everything's good to go. A lot of times they'll request the seller pay for this inspection, pumping inspection, and I don't blame them for that. I think that it's part of the process. I think that you should have a functioning operating septic system, but I just want to warn you because I've seen multiple $10,000, $12,000 septic repairs frequently. It's not something that happens every once in a while, it happens a lot. So if you choose an inexperienced realtor to help you with selling your home, they're gonna come in your home, they're gonna promise to sell your home for a high amount of money, a low commission rate. They're gonna skip all of these items that I've just gone over, contract to closing. You want a real estate company full of people that know how to walk you through all of these items and prepare you for them ahead of time. That is key in the transaction being smooth. So septic inspection, pest, home inspection. We're getting towards the end. So we're getting towards the end. You're going to be getting buyer loan approval. You will be scheduling your closing date and time. You will likely have to leave work to come to closing. Why am I saying this and chuckling? Because once every month I have somebody not wanting to leave work to come to closing. It happens all the time. So be prepared to have to leave between the hours of 9 to 5. Come sit down for 30 minutes and sign your seller documents. It's part of the deal. We can't do that electronically. We cannot do that DocuSign. We need wet signatures on a deed, at least now. Maybe I'll record one of these videos 5 years from now and everything will be electronic. That would be great. So you will have to take time off for closing. Let our team know your preferred day and time. One of our major issues is final walkthroughs. And I really think that if all sellers and buyers were schooled on these, we would have a much smoother process, and then nobody would have leave closing day with a bad taste in their mouth. If you go to a final walkthrough, when you're a seller, put yourself in the buyer's shoes. And when you're walking in a home that you're gonna move in, do you want that home to be dirty? Do you want the fridge to be dirty? Do you want the oven to be dirty? Do you want the carpets not to be cleaned? Do you want holes in the walls from all the pictures that you took off the wall? These are all things our contract has in here. The seller shall deliver the property to the purchaser in broom clean condition. It's a big deal because that's a gray area. How do you define broom clean? I mean, just sweep it up and you're good to go. I am now including in my emails to my sellers and my buyers that in my seller email, I say, you're not required, but a professional move out clean would make things go so much easier, because I can't tell you how many walkthrough items, how many problems I have because a house is dirty at closing. Then that forces the buyer's agent to be in a difficult position, the buyer's agent to reach out to the listing agent and say, this house is really filthy, I don't even think it's in broom clean condition. Then we, seller's agent, have to awkwardly ask you, the seller, can you hire somebody to clean? Or we don't want to ask you, so we pay to have it done, and it's just everybody's waiting and everybody's upset, and it just makes for a not good experience. So I am recommending to my sellers to have time allowed for a house to be professionally cleaned prior to walkthrough. I'm also on the other end of things in my buyer email recommending to my buyers, your house may be in broom clean condition when you receive it. So you may want to have a professional cleaner lined up, or you may want to have a day allowed for you to clean your home before you move in. So those situations where somebody's moving in after they sign the papers are just kind of dicey. So highly recommend having the house professionally cleaned. Then when you get to the closing table, some things you'll need to know, and we include this in our emails, but not everybody reads their emails, but we highlight bring your driver's license because you need that. And if you want your proceeds quickly, the fastest way is to bring a voided check to give the attorney, and then that money will just be wired to your account when it comes in. There's some very important items about receiving your funds that make this process upsetting for sellers in the end. Settlement companies have up to 48 hours to get your proceeds to you. So typically what I see is we have a closing on a Friday and everybody signed their documents at 3 or 4 p.m. So those documents are signed, settlement has technically occurred, we've handed over keys, we've changed utilities. However, that transaction needs to be recorded at the courthouse. So we are waiting until Monday because the courthouse closes at 5 p.m. So the transaction's being recorded Monday. The attorney's office or settlement company has up to 48 hours to get you your funds. So it closed on Monday and we have until Wednesday, and that's the law regarding that. So I have had many sellers over the years, settlement has occurred, this is what they say, settlement has occurred, those people have my keys, I want my money. And it doesn't happen that way. And if you're watching this video and you know ahead of time, then you're not going to be as upset when it doesn't happen that way. You may, as a seller, have a different settlement attorney than the buyer does. So the buyer's attorney is the one who's giving you your proceeds. They handle all the funds. They handle all the recordation. So they're the ones writing your check or wiring your check. So I highly recommend wiring, not spending your money before you get it. Realize it may take 2 or 3 days, especially if it's a weekend, to get those funds. And if you know all that up front, then you're less likely to be disappointed in the end when that happens. So I know this was a really long video and I thank you for watching it. I think it'll really be helpful for your selling process to be prepared and know all these items ahead of time, so there'll be less surprises for you.